Title: I, 29F, accidentally saw my husband's 32M messages with his sister, and now I can't unsee them. Part 1. Okay, internet strangers, this is going to be long because I am spiraling. If you're here for a quick TLDR, you're not going to get one yet because I honestly still don't know what's going on. But my stomach is in knots, my hands are shaking while typing this, and if I don't get this out somewhere, I think I might actually scream. Me, 29F, and my husband Mark, 32M, have been married for 3 years, together for 6. We met in the most cliché way possible. Mutual friends invited us to the same game night. We were paired for charades, and he was so charmingly bad at it that I spent half the night crying laughing. He asked me out 2 days later. The rest was history. We were that annoying couple that just clicked. The kind of couple our friends used to joke about. If you two ever break up, I'm giving up on love. Mark is one of those guys who is just effortlessly likable. He's good with my parents, good with kids, loves dogs, grills a mean burger, fixes things around the house without complaining. Honestly, up until 3 days ago, I would have said our relationship was rock solid. Enter Jess. Or as Mark always called her, his sister. They met, according to him, in college. Apparently they lived in the same dorm freshman year and just clicked. He's always referred to her as his sister because, in his words, she's the family I got to choose. I always thought that was sweet. I have a brother, and I know how important sibling relationships can be, so I welcomed Jess into my life. At first, Jess was around a lot. She came to birthdays, to BBQs, to housewarming parties. She once drove me to the ER when I sliced my hand on a broken glass and Mark was out of town. I liked her. She was funny, a little sarcastic, the kind of person who remembers everyone's coffee order. I even joked once that if she and I had met first, we would have been friends even without Mark. Fast forward to now. Mark and Jess talk all the time. Like, multiple times a day. I used to think it was cute. They'd send each other dumb memes, random TikToks, updates about work. Sometimes I'd overhear Mark laughing on the phone with her while I was cooking dinner, and I'd smile because, hey, everyone should have someone who makes them laugh like that. Then Friday night happened. We had a quiet evening planned. Mark was going to grill, we were going to watch the new season of that murder documentary I love, and maybe have some married people fun later. It was chill. At some point, Mark said he was going to shower before dinner. He left his phone on the coffee table. This is the part where I wish I could go back in time. His phone buzzed. Normally, I don't even glance. We both have each other's passcodes, but we're not snoopers. But I saw the name pop up. Jess. And the preview said, God, I can still taste you. When can we talk? My stomach dropped so hard I swear I felt dizzy. I blinked at the screen, convinced I had misread it. Nope. Still said what it said. And then, because I am apparently a masochist, I picked up his phone. I know, privacy and trust and all that. But listen, when you see a message like that from someone who is supposedly family, your brain does not go, let's respect boundaries. It goes, what the actual hell? I unlocked his phone, we know each other's pins, and opened the chat. I don't even know how to describe what I saw. Weeks, no, months of messages. Flirty, intimate, sometimes just straight up explicit. I scrolled and scrolled while my heart pounded, so loud I thought I'd pass out. There were messages like, wish I could sneak over tonight. You're the only one who makes me feel this way. Remember last weekend? I can still feel you. And then the photos. Oh my God, the photos. I'm not going to get graphic, but there is no universe in which those were siblings being silly. I just sat there, phone in my hand, mouth open, scrolling like I was watching a car crash in slow motion. I screenshotted everything. My hands were shaking so bad that half the screenshots are blurry, but I got enough to know I'm not imagining this. Mark came out of the shower right then, and I panicked. I tossed his phone back on the table like it was hot and tried to look normal. He smiled, kissed me on the top of my head, and asked if I wanted him to start the grill. I swear to you, I almost laughed. Not a normal laugh. A borderline hysterical one. Because how could he just walk around like nothing was wrong when he had literally been sexting someone he calls his sister earlier that day? I mumbled something like, yeah, sure, and then spent the rest of the evening in a fog. I barely ate. I couldn't focus on the show we watched. When he put his arm around me on the couch, I felt my skin crawl. That night, I lay awake next to him, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together how long this has been going on and how I missed it. The next morning, I told him I was meeting a friend for brunch. Lie. Instead, I drove to the first cafe I could find, sat down with my coffee, and opened my screenshots. I went through them one by one, slowly, like ripping off a bandage. There were references to things I didn't even know had happened. Weekend getaways he'd told me were guys' trips. Late nights at the office that apparently weren't. Inside jokes that made my stomach twist because they referenced our bedroom. At one point, Jess had texted, "Do you ever feel bad about lying to her?" And Mark replied, "Sometimes. But she doesn't need to know. This is ours." I almost threw up right there in the cafe. I stayed there for hours, alternating between crying, rereading, and Googling things like how to confront cheating spouse without losing your mind. The kicker? We're supposed to have dinner with Jess next week. She invited us over to her place for a little get-together. Part of me wants to cancel, part of me wants to show up and watch them squirm, part of me wants to walk in and flip the table like a real housewife. I haven't confronted Mark yet. Every time I think about it, my throat closes up. Do I lead with the screenshots? Do I just ask casually, "Hey, how's your sister?" and see what happens? I feel like I'm living in some twisted soap opera. For now, I'm just sitting here with my phone full of receipts, a knot in my chest, and no clue what my next move is. And that's where I am right now. If you made it this far, thank you for reading. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I have a feeling dinner next week is going to be interesting. Title: Update: I, 29F, accidentally saw my husband's 32M messages with his sister. Part 2. Part 2. Hi, it's me again, back with what I promised would be an update. I honestly didn't think I'd have this much to say so soon, but a lot has happened since I posted Part 1. I wasn't sure if I'd even get through dinner with Jess without either crying or flipping a table, but apparently I have more self-control than I thought. After my first post blew up, thank you to everyone who commented, BTW. Even the tough love ones. I spent an entire day just reading replies. Some of you were like, "Girl, pack your bags now." Some were like, "Be calm and gather evidence." And some were like, "This is a kink. Maybe they roleplay as siblings." Y'all, I wish it was just that. It's not. I decided not to confront Mark right away. A lot of people said I should have a plan first, maybe talk to a lawyer, maybe figure out where I'd go if things blew up. And honestly, I wasn't ready to see his face while knowing what I knew. I needed to be 100% sure that I wasn't just going to explode and scream "I know everything" without being strategic. The next few days were absolute torture. I felt like I was living with a stranger. Every time his phone buzzed, my stomach clenched. Every time he smiled at me, I wondered if he had just finished texting Jess something disgusting. I started sleeping on the very edge of the bed, pretending it was because it was hot. Then came dinner night. I almost bailed. I almost texted Jess some excuse about food poisoning, but something in me snapped. I wanted to look her in the eye. I wanted to see if she would be able to sit across from me and make small talk knowing what I knew. Mark seemed weirdly excited about the dinner, which made me want to throw up even more. He kept humming while he got ready, joking about how Jess makes the best pasta. I stared at him in the mirror while he shaved and thought, who even are you? The drive to Jess's apartment was quiet. Normally we'd listen to music, but this time I just stared out the window, gripping my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Mark asked if I was okay, and I said I was just tired. Jess greeted us at the door like nothing was wrong. She hugged me, hugged Mark, made some joke about how we were late. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and ask, "How dare you smile at me?" Her apartment looked nice. I'd only been there once before for a game night. Everything smelled like garlic and basil. She had a bottle of wine already open. The first 20 minutes were torture. We made small talk about work, about the house renovations, about the weather. I watched Mark watch her. It wasn't overt, nothing you could point at and say, "Look, see?" But there was something about the way he smiled at her that made me want to smash my glass. Then, while Jess was in the kitchen, Mark reached over and squeezed my knee. He smiled like everything was normal and whispered, You okay? You seem off tonight. I had to bite my tongue to keep from saying, I'm off because you're sleeping with your sister. Instead, I just nodded and forced a smile. Dinner was good, objectively good. Homemade pasta, garlic bread, salad. I barely tasted any of it. I was too busy trying to catch them slipping up. At one point, Jess said something like, "Oh, that reminds me of that weekend trip last fall," and I swear I saw Mark shoot her a look like a warning. My stomach dropped because that was the same weekend he told me he was at a conference. Halfway through dinner, I excused myself to the bathroom and texted my best friend, who I had finally told everything to the night before. I don't know how much longer I can do this. They're both sitting here acting normal. Best friend, keep calm. You're there to watch, not blow up. Get your answers. When I came back out, Jess and Mark were laughing about something. I asked what was funny, and Jess said, "Oh, just an old joke from college. You wouldn't get it." I wanted to throw my wine glass at her head. After dinner, we sat around for a bit longer, then said our goodbyes. Mark offered to help Jess with the dishes, and I swear I almost stayed behind to make sure they didn't start making out in the kitchen. On the way home, Mark seemed happy, like genuinely cheerful. He said, "See? That was nice. We should do this more often." I just stared at him. When we got home, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I asked, "Mark, can I ask you something?" He looked at me and said, "Of course." I said, "What exactly is your relationship with Jess?" He blinked, then smiled nervously. "What do you mean?" "She's my sister." "Except she's not," I said. That wiped the smile right off his face. "Why would you say that?" "I've seen the messages, Mark." His face went pale. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Finally, he said, "You went through my phone?" I laughed. I actually laughed. "That's what you're focusing on right now." He ran a hand through his hair and said, "It's not what you think." I said, "Really?" "Because what I think is that you've been sleeping with the woman you've been calling your sister for months." He sat down on the edge of the bed and put his face in his hands. "It's complicated." I snapped. "Try me." And then he said the last thing I expected to hear. "She's not just Jess. She's my ex." Title. Final update. I, 29F, accidentally saw my husband's 32M messages with his sister. Part 3. Part 3. Okay. Deep breath. This is the last update I'm posting because I honestly feel like I've been living inside a soap opera for the past week and I'm exhausted. When I left off, Mark had just told me that Jess wasn't just his chosen sister. She was his ex. And I swear the room started spinning. I asked him to clarify, because I couldn't even process that sentence. "Mark, we dated in college. For about a year. We broke up before senior year and stayed friends." Me. "Friends? You called her your sister for 6 years." "Mark, I know how it looks, but we really were just friends for a long time. Things changed recently." That was the moment I realized my marriage, as I knew it was over. Because there's no universe in which things changed recently means anything except we started sleeping together again. I asked him when it started. He said about 8 months ago. Apparently, they ran into each other alone one weekend. I think this was the conference trip lie, and old feelings resurfaced. I asked him if he loved her. He didn't answer right away. He stared at the floor and finally said, "I don't know." That silence was the loudest thing I've ever heard. I asked him why he lied about their relationship, why he let me think she was basically family. He said, "It was easier. People don't get it. We wanted to keep it simple." I told him that calling her his sister while sneaking around with her was the most disgusting thing I'd ever heard. He tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. He said he never meant to hurt me, that he still cared about me, that this just happened. I said, "Affairs don't just happen. They're choices you make over and over." We argued for hours. At one point, I was yelling so loud the neighbor's dog started barking. At another point, I was crying so hard I couldn't breathe. Eventually, I told him I needed space and asked him to sleep on the couch. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to my best friend's apartment. I showed her everything, the screenshots, the timeline, what he told me. She poured me a giant mug of coffee, handed me tissues, and said, "Babe, you know what you have to do." And she was right. I went home that afternoon and told Mark I wanted a separation. He didn't even fight me. He just nodded and said, "If that's what you need." That night, I packed a bag and went to stay with my brother, who, by the way, is an actual brother, and when I told him everything, he was ready to show up at Mark's with a baseball bat. I told him not to. Over the next few days, Mark texted me a few times. At first, he asked me to come home and talk like adults. Then he sent me a long message saying he was sorry, that he didn't mean for this to happen, that he would end things with Jess if I would give him another chance. And here's the part one wasn't expecting. Jess texted me too. She said she never wanted to hurt me, that she had real feelings for Mark, and that she hoped we could all be adults about this. I didn't reply, because what exactly do you say to the woman who's been sleeping with your husband? I spent a lot of time thinking about whether I even wanted to salvage this marriage. The truth is, I don't think I can ever trust him again. The lies were too big, too layered. It wasn't just about the physical affair. It was about the gaslighting, the fake family narrative, the months of pretending. I met with a lawyer. We talked through my options. It's going to be messy, but I have support, my brother, my best friend, even my parents, who were furious when they found out. A few days ago, I told Mark I want a divorce.
He cried.
I cried. He asked one more time if I was sure, and I said yes. He's staying in the house for now because it's easier logistically, but I'm looking for a small apartment. I'm also booking therapy because I need to figure out why I ignored so many little red flags along the way. The weirdest thing is that I don't feel angry anymore. I just feel empty. Like I used up all my rage in those first few days, and now I'm just tired. For anyone wondering, no, I don't think I'll ever be friends with Jess again. Not that we were ever real friends. And no, I don't think Mark and Jess will last. They're welcome to each other, honestly. If this is how they wanted to start their relationship, good luck to them. To everyone who commented on my first 2 posts, thank you. Reading your advice and your kind words kept me from feeling like I was losing my mind. I guess the takeaway is, trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. And if someone is calling another adult their sibling but acting weirdly possessive about them, maybe ask a few extra questions. So that's it. I'm moving on with my life. It sucks, but I'd rather be alone than stay with someone who could look me in the eye every day while lying to me. And for the record, the next time a guy tells me some woman is just like a sister to him, yeah, I'm going to need to see some baby pictures. End of part 3. Resolution.